Ukrainian drone debris left 4 people wounded, including 3 underage. The TPR on July 16th was attacked. 6 civilians were wounded, including a 10-year-old child. In the village of Krasny Partizan, 1 woman was killed, 2 people were wounded. In Gorlovka, 1 man was wounded following the shelling, following the detonation of explosive. In the Volkhovanka district, 1 person was wounded on July the 20th. A drone wounded 1 woman in Donetsk on July the 21st. A drone attacked a passenger bus on July the 21st. A drone attacked a passenger bus in Gorlovka. The driver was wounded in the Zaporozhye region. On the night of July 18th, the Ukrainian drones wounded on July 21st in Berdyansk. Drone debris fell on the church of the kindergarten. No children was wounded, fortunately. The Kursk region on July the 18th, the Ukrainian drone wounded, fortunately. The Kursk region on July the 18th, the Ukrainian drone attacked a civil vehicle in the village of Glushkovo, leaving a 57-year-old woman wounded. On July 19th and 20th, drone attacked in the villages of Lumakino and wounded. These people are 20, 22, and 30 years old. On July 22nd, a gas station was attacked, and a motor driver was wounded in the village of Viktorovka during the agricultural works. A truck hit an explosive. Following this, a 22-year-old driver was wounded. The Kherson region. A 22-year-old driver was wounded. The Kherson region. On July 19th, the Ukrainian army attacked with FPV drones agricultural market in the village of Veliki Kapani. 2 people were wounded. On July 22nd, in the Golopristan, killed, 3 wounded. 3 people were wounded in the villages of Gutkovka and Novaya Kakhovka. At night, we were informed that Sochi was attacked. 1 woman was killed. At least 1 more was wounded. You understand? You see, it's not attack wounded. You understand? You see, it's not attack against military equipment. This is targeted terrorist attack against civilians. They choose people who are unarmed. They go about their daily routine. They treat people, build things. School children go to school, and preschool children do their thing. They are targeted by this terrorist gang, but all of this will be punished. Russian courts continue to pronounce verdicts to Ukrainian neo-Nazis and mercenaries for crimes in the Kursk region against civilians and Russian soldiers. Long sentences in prison were given to Ukrainian militants. Alexei Yashenko, Viktor Zelenko, Alexander Mikhailevich, Nikolai Melnik, and Sergei Tkachenko were given 16 years in prison each. Nazary Kis, Sergei Andreev, Vladimir Pikhotsky, Bogdan Nikitchenko, Anton Gudimov, Nazar Vovlichenko, Mikhail Belov, and Pavel Karakulin were given 15 years in prison each. Vovlichenko, Mikhail Belov, and Pavel Karakulin were given 15 years in prison each. Given to mercenaries from New Zealand, Jacob Patrick Lynch, Georgia, Georgi Balamiza, and Spain, Fernandez Picasso, 13 and 6.5 years in prison de absentia, respectively, were given to American mercenaries Jennifer Ann Mully and Georgia, respectively, were given to American mercenaries Jennifer Ann Mully and Georgia on July the 21st. With the co-presidency of Great Britain and Germany, the 29th session of the Ramstein Forum took place. It was attended by the NATO General Secretary Mark Rutte and Commander-in-Chief of the United Forces of the Alliance in Europe, Alexis Grinkevich, as well as a high EU representative for foreign affairs and by the Pentagon head. According to experts, this shows that Washington is serious about shifting the burden of the military support to Ukraine on Europe, including at the expense of large-scale procurements of American armaments for Ukraine. The tone was set by the procurements of American armaments for Ukraine. The tone was set by the British defense minister. He boasted with statistics saying that London of the artillery shells worth 150 million pounds, but he did not say that these armaments were used. Children are affected, the very children who are traditionally caused the feeling of pity, at least in words, in London. The photos of these people used by the British diplomats to promote human rights for the sake of these very children. But human rights is not there right now. They don't have photos of children right now. They don't have photos of children from kindergarten or teenagers who were killed they don't have photos of those who were maimed among civilians, women and the elderly who were affected and wounded by the armaments supplied by the Westerners. This topic is not in the narrative of the Western in the Western narrative. They're done with it. A minister promised to increase the number of drone supplies to 100,000 items. Yet again, these drones are used to kill civilians. They campaign to rearm Ukraine, to support Washington. German defense minister tried to keep up. He reported that they agreed with the U.S. to give Ukraine almost 5 Patriot defense systems. And he also said that Berlin wants to supply more armaments to Kiev. No one mentioned how many people in Ukraine and soldiers, they put the uniform on and were killed. They don't put the uniform on and were killed. They don't increase the arms supplies by some kind of items. They should mention that they will increase the number of Ukrainians killed, because one thing led to another. The Ukrainian regime got the most of this get-together to receive more military support, and money to the means of the Ukrainian army. For the former defense ministry and now the president of the Council of National Security, the country received record high support worth $43 billion. This money could have been used to make Ukraine really establish scientific towns, to turn all of it into a technological park, to open up world renowned resorts. For a number of reasons, including corruption, this country has not been developed on these tracks. But the fate of the support or investments, but to become a tool in the Western hands. According to Merov, this helped the Kiev regime to meet some 40% of the needs of the far front, on their own, because they ostensibly invested over the last 2 years of the country. However, the new defense minister said that this money is not enough. The top officials in Ukraine be reported as well. Maybe these flows track of these flows could be useful as well. That's why they always need more money. According to Shmigal, to cover the deficit in 2025, they need at least $6 billion. They need at least $6 billion to be provided by the Europeans. He said that he argued that this yet again money injection will help Kiev to create more drones and to procure long-range missiles to hold the far front and to strike deeper into Russia. The line this performance was drawn by Zelensky. He, with a straight face, said that the US should Brussels wants to attract this money from out of budget sources. Who will this money end up with? Causes no doubt, especially given the new law adopted by the Verkhovna Rada on the elimination of the independence of the National Anti-Corruption Bureau and the Specialized Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office. It was adopted on July 22nd. Now about the mobilization and desertion in Ukraine. While pumping Ukraine with armaments, its Western sponsors want to make this mobilization even tougher. They want to inflict a strategic defeat not only on Russia, but they conduct genocide of the Ukrainian people through the hands of the person who became the president of the country. However, this people hunt does not bring the results they were. The losses on the far front exceed the number of records. On the Amid this, the desertion is growing. According to the statistics, since the beginning of 2025, the number of people who went to wall exceeded 110,000 people. Overall, from February 2022, more than 230,000 people deserted. Experts say that this number can be even higher. The Kiev regime wants to expedite the implementation of the law on the protection of the constitutional structure in the activities of religious organizations. Religious organizations that came into force in September 2024. It provides for the state the state service on ethnic policy and the freedom of conscience of Ukraine, sent an order to the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, the violations of the legislation on freedom of conscience and religious organization. But what is this? It even anti-utopias pale in comparison with this. As the reason for this, as the service stated, is the pseudo-research conducted by the service on the signs of the affiliation of the Kiev Metropolitan of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church with the and these conclusions were based on the fact that people in this church saints and have the same prayers. Do they have to eliminate this? They wanted the Ukrainian Orthodox Church to withdraw from the Russian Orthodox Church, and all the priests of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church should withdraw from all the bodies of the Russian Orthodox Church, declaring valid the decisions of the Russian Orthodox Church diocese. Metropolitan Anuphrius had to state that he withdrew from the Russian Orthodox Church. It's classic. It says Nazism and fascism, the willingness and the inclination to, with force, people to abandon the saint things.
It's a direct link with those times. So, just unreal to rewrite the charter of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, to rewrite the charter of the Russian Orthodox Church. They proposed that, and the decisions of other Orthodox authorities. So they perfectly understand that in this Ukraine government. Service for the freedom of conscience. Actually, the attitude is very tough. They are provided a lot of money, and they are an instrument of destruction of orthodoxy on the territory of Ukraine, of the destructionists. For the freedom of conscience, they will proceed until the end and go to court in order to provide to those schismatics who have no attitude to canonical orthodoxy this Church of Ukraine. And the service has already provided the lists of organizations connected with the Kiev metropoly. It includes the sites of Ukrainian Orthodox Church. With the Kiev metropoly, it includes the sites of Ukrainian Orthodox Church. They are all ordered to divide themselves from the Orthodox Church, otherwise they will be banned. So it's not a freedom of conscience, it's a freedom from conscience. Actually, the Zelensky regime, it has worked hard to defeat the orthodoxy, the canonical orthodoxy that has thousands of years. The canonical orthodoxy that has thousands of years. A lover, maybe he can also destroy physically, destroy the church where believers have prayed, but to possess the souls of believers, it's impossible. He will not succeed in that exactly. He will not succeed in that exactly. In parallel with that, the Verkhovna Rada adopted in the first reading the bill on the fundamentals of the state policy on national memory, which extends the scope of the notorious laws on decommunization and decolonization, as they call that, of all sites dedicated to the history of the Great Patriotic War. Its desecration of the monuments to many Soviet citizens who have sacrificed their lives actually to get rid of this brown plague. This legislative initiative will allow neo-Banderites to mock, to desecrate the memorials connected with the Great Patriotic War. The memorials connected with the Great Patriotic War, to destroy memorials to Red Army fighters and their gravestones. Now they will have the so-called National Museum of Holodomor and Genocide has been included as visiting sites for delegation, and has been included as visiting sites for delegation and memorial to the Heavenly Hundred. It has no attitude to fighting Nazism. They will just conceal that with some papers. And this human-hating ideology will certainly be held responsible, and the fate of the Soviet people will be passed by the Ukrainian citizens from generation to generation. One more cultural front fighting. It's the Kiev regime combating the Russian language. They have appointed a new ombudsman. Actually, it's they called it language ombudsman to protect the language. Language ombudsman to protect the language. In common language, you can call her expression Führer. It is a philologist and folklorist, Yelena Ivanovskaya. Any odious statements, but the current Madam Ivanovskaya, she just outdid him. At first, she requested to take the Russian. At first, she requested to take the Russian language away. Just think about it. The Constitution of Ukraine guarantees, as it said, the free development, use, and the protection of Russian and other languages of national minorities on the territory of Ukraine. The violation of their own obligations in human rights is just obvious. They are not allowed to study media material. Obvious. They are not allowed to study media materials, to read books, to watch TV, to study scientific communication in unofficial situations, but I do not know how they will control in which language people think. I expect that there will be another pseudo-law written about that in Ukraine. Actually, the Ministry of Justice has made an advertisement video where the employees demonstrated phones with a photograph of the minister in them, but the interface in the phones of those officials, that was a Russian language interface, as it has turned out. It's just violent. It's just the change of the language. It's just violent. It's just the change of the language. Nazis target the Hungarian, the Polish languages because the language diversity is viewed by them as an obstacle to building a mono-ethnical state where there is a place only for one people, one language, one faith, and so on. And it's just not naturally developing, but violently formed, naturally developing, but violently formed, and testify about the relevance of the special military operation, and all its targets will be achieved, as the Russian government has repeatedly stated. We have also drawn attention to a statement by the Romanian Ministry of Defense about the violation of Romanian airspace by Ukrainian military aircraft, allegedly for. It's just some mild signals. It's just normal. It was their allies that have arrived, and allegedly it was no threat to life and security, but it's in contrast with hysterical reaction by Bucharest when it just mentioned many times the issue of debris from Russian UAVs who allegedly ended up on their territory. In region, it was received from the French around half a year ago. As for the Ukrainian military aircraft forces using the country's airspace, it's in the logic of the official Bucharest that consistently, without taking into account its own interests and the support for Zelensky gang, it's a step to catastrophic degradation of the European security. The Romanian authorities do not think about the risks. And ignore the demand for someone else's fighter aircrafts in the sky, and ignore them. Think that it is better. About the presentation of another book by Maxim Grigoriev about the crimes by Kiev regime in the Kursk region and the Donetsk People's Republic. The International Public Tribunal on Crimes of Ukrainian Neo-Nazis. It's literature that is very difficult to read. It's about the beastly crimes of the Kiev regime, but you need to know about that. Of the decision to conduct a special military operation, and it's our common task to do our best for all the guilty in those atrocities to be duly punished. Those crimes by the Kiev regime have no statute of limitations, and we will continue to tell about them. The links for accreditation will be posted in the version of the Today briefing, and the materials on the outcome of this event. They will be available on our resources. in connection with the Kursk region that started on the 6th of August last year. There is a photo exhibition, Kursk character afterward, posted on the website of the Russian Foreign Ministry. It has been prepared by Sergei Vinavsky and Rodion Miroshnik. Participated in the preparation. The Rostov region Legislative Assembly is the first project telling about events on the territory of the Kursk region in 2024-2025. The exhibition will present materials by Russian photographers Sergei Vinavsky, Ekaterina Zatalokina, Danila Dmitrukov, and Anna Dolgorova. What is this exhibition about? You can start. What is this exhibition about? You can start daily routine of people who had to put up with life during the invasion of the Kiev regime. It's just very difficult to observe footage about the life of the residents of Kursk, Sucha, and other settlements. I will not name them now. I will not describe that because you can see it by yourself, as I have already mentioned. Now about the situation in Moldova. The parliamentary elections are due on the 28th of September. The official Chisinau due on the 28th of September. The official Chisinau's support for democracy, but actually it continues to tighten the screws on opposition political forces. The current authorities, they have just sacrificed the well-being of their own people. On the 19th of July, the Central Electoral Commission of Moldova has denied registration. The Central Electoral Commission of Moldova has denied registration requirements of the election legislation, and they have requested the end of activities of 4 parties participating in this political bloc: Renaissance, Victory, Alternative and Salvation Force for Moldova, and Chance. It's just a copy of the Romanian scenario, when the alternative forces are actually banned, actually cancelled. In Moldova itself, they call this step a political beating and trampling of political competitors into the ground. The Chisinau regime is just doing. The pro-Western authorities have artificially divided the Moldovan people according to their political parties, not only in Moldova. Their political parties, not only in Moldovan Commission, has opened only 2 election polls in Russia, where 500,000 Moldovan citizens reside, and in North America and Western Europe, it was about 200 election polls. Now about 200 election polls. Now the situation is repeating. On the 15th of July, added its proposal on election polls abroad. So in Russia, there were just queues. Many people standing in queues trying to get to those election polls. Have they taken that into account? No, they just proposed to open only 2 election polls in Moscow, in Italy. They just proposed to open only 2 election polls in Moscow, in Italy. 6 in France, 26, Britain and Romania, 23, respectively. So let us cite the numbers. For 250,000 Moldovan citizens in Italy, it will be 73 election polls, election stations, and For 350,000 Moldovan citizens in Russia, it will be just several election stations. So in Italy, everyone who is willing to vote will be able to do that, and in Russia it will be only 10 people from 350,000. It's just bandits, actions of bandits, that the Sanda regime is that into a political circus. How do you think the Western human rights structures will react? For this number, disproportionate number of election stations. So actually they will mention the violations, but there is no justice here. Because initially it's just the violations that make the outcome on the legitimacy, transparency. Those statements are so they just support the voting of the diaspora in the West. It's just using technical means in order to influence the outcome of the elections. So it's just remarkable the activities of the European Union and primarily Bucharest. Romanian ambassadors just visit Moldova non-stop. Actually, Sanda is a Romanian citizen who governs Moldova. Choice. Actually, Moldova is a European country. So what choice are you talking about? The country is on the territory of Europe. They are mentioning endlessly the Russian propaganda. What propaganda do you mean? We'll just cite numbers and facts and reply to the Russophobic statements. And Sandu has literally mobilized the Romanian voters with Romanian passports during the Romania. They just cite endlessly this Russophobic story, anti-Russian narratives, and pro-Russian influence allegedly used in Romania to support the political candidates. And this against the background of those numbers I have cited, manipulation, not just a slip of the tongue. The Moldovan citizens, it's just the Sanda regime that considers them this way, making them to call themselves not Moldovans but Romanian, and the language has already been changed to the Romanian language.
All this could be
changed to the Romanian language.
All this could be overturned if people could express their point of view in the media, but in the Moldovan media is left without all Russian-speaking media, and the regime Sandu affected one way or another all leaders of patriotic forces supporting the development, support of leaders of patriotic forces make Western curators of my Sandu worry. I understand if they don't influence the outcomes of the elections through the administrative resource, carousel voting, open manipulation, the outcomes will become a verdict to the failed policy of my son. The outcomes will become a verdict to the failed policy of my son. What the West does directly, Romania, through the Romanian leadership, is clearly the interference into the electoral process in Moldova. This is an attempt to violate the expression of free will. This is an attempt to violate the expression of free will of sensible people in favor of their future, in favor of respectful ties with various countries, including Russia. Moldova has close ties with Russia. It has been for centuries, not only today. This is the way of history, and to remove these ties would mean to destroy the council of the Moldovan people in the way it has been shaped, to rewrite it. At the same time, the attempts to reshape to meet the interview to an Austrian media outlet, President Sandu said that she wants to increase the military spending up to 5% of the GDP. It is clear that they wanted to please the West, but the country lacks resources for this, even in the strategy of national defense for 2024-2034 provides for the increase of military spendings only up to 1% of the GDP. But in July, participating in the multinational NATO exercises on August 4th through 18th in training centers of the national exercises Faischl 2025 together with Romanian and American soldiers. Well, we see that they continue historical revisionism and glorification of Nazi criminals. On July 19th, under the flag of the EU in the village of Dushmani, Glodiani region, another cemetery of the so-called Romanian heroes was opened for ostensibly a crusade against the Bolsheviks, end of quote. This is extreme cynicism and an insult to the memory of those people who liberated Moldova from the Brown Plague during the Great Patriotic War. But they liberated Europe as well, but as we see now, Europe is not really grateful for that. We always talk about the outcomes of this kind of entity, polarization of society, and undermines internal political stability. People in Moldova see this, and they don't believe what they are told about the EU and NATO, that the convergence with the structure wish them stamina to fight for the country and not give up. This is the NATO statement on July 18th and about ostensible involvement of Russia to cyber attacks. It's fake, of course, and politically motivated on top of it. Capitals, characteristic of them, they give no proof, and you know why? Because they don't have any proof. Because if they had any, they would show them. Very revealing We see the words of the CIA and Director of National Reconnaissance of the U.S. are very revealing. They said that the Obama administration elections, and it started the endless flow of lies, and Russia was accused of any kind of cyber attack since then. Would like to remind the West the intergovernmental roster of contact points to respond to computer incidents. This mechanism helps operative contacts between specialists of various countries to exchange the relevant information. Over the existence of the roster, we did not receive any of cyber attacks. That is it. This is one more proof of what these allegations are really worth. Now about sanctions. You know that the sanctions impunity continues. Europeans continue to introduce sanctions against us, and I think that they are and packages, not people in the countries whose regimes came up with this suffer the most. One of the most affected countries is Germany, according to the local experts. Their production capabilities realized. The automobile, metallurgy, chemical industries are on the verge of deindustrialization. People seriously save, and as well as to decrease their personnel. Their direct foreign investments over the last 4 years decreased by 326 billion euros. Germany introduces sanctions, but they face the recession. Finland, who is usually closely cooperated with the Russian companies, has found in 2024. Great Britain, Japan, Canada saw the economic situation on the verge of the recession. In the EU, according to Eurostat, since the sanctions were introduced against Russia, the EU paid more for gas by almost 200 billion euros. Provoked more burden on state budgets. This exacerbated the situation in such countries like Greece, Italy, France. Debt for many years exceeded 100% of the GDP. This means bankruptcy. That's what we read in the student books. The energy crisis and poorly thought through policy of decarbonization may turn into deindustrialization for Europe. Recognize inefficiency of the sanctions against Russia. According to former Prime Minister of Italy, Mario Draghi, with the same level of production, the EU won't be able to restore the growth. And I would like to quote the report. Europe suddenly was left without its major supplier of energy, Russia. But did it happen suddenly? Italy and the EU don't have this process at all, do they? That's my conclusion. Or we can say at all, do they? That's my conclusion. Or we can, because they are masochists. It's one or the other. All of this is only the most clear part of the price for the attempts to economically blackmail Russia, and the long-lasting consequences cannot be evaluated now. Amid this erosion economic cannot be evaluated now. Amid this erosion economic indicators of the EU, strategic review. Recently, the Secretariat General for National Defense and Security prepared on the order of President Macron a new version of the National Strategic Review. It declared of the National Strategic Review. It declared who in Russia threatened France or how Russia threatened France is unclear. NATO is also under threat of, guess who? Of Russia. The EU is there. In their opinion, we threat France, NATO, and the EU. NATO and the EU, we threat France, NATO, and the EU. NATO and the EU to prepare for, I quote, war of high intensity with the Russian Federation. This is an anti-Russian manifestation. I cannot call this document anything other than that. It was not surprising for us, of course. It enshrined what everything that recently French leadership talked about 6 months said to various journalists during his contacts, that France wishes to develop relations with Russia, that he has direct orders to renew the countries of either those who wrote this doctrine or the ambassador of France. The authors complain about the overall erosion of the international situation and the growing number of conflicts in the world. They came up with a cliché. The revisionist states, France in particular, especially France, is an active participant of the hegemonic neo-colonial policy and military and political adventures, including NATO expansion eastward and support of the coup d'etat in Kiev in 2014. Interference into elections in various countries. Overturning of legally, they pretend as if they don't recognize the consequences of their own actions. It is not surprising that the narrative of the review is the Russian threat that in an alarmist manner is mentioned literally on each page of the document. They have a set of tried and unproved accusations against Moscow and aggressive and undermining activities on land, in the sky, in the Pacific region. This begs the question, what did you use so you came up with this? The fantasy of the experts of the came up with this. The fantasy of the experts of the Secretary General has no limits. You understand very well that the crisis around Ukraine is presented in a very biased way. And the escalation were not mentioned there. The authors complain about the review did not mention how they the review did not mention how they escalate the station at maximum. The authors complain about tougher approach of Russia towards France and our western states. They want to inflict states. They want to inflict for an unknown reason are strengthening our defense capabilities, but we respond to their own perennial aggressive policy, not a public policy, but on land against our country. Russian pseudo threat is land against our country. Russian pseudo threat is used as a reason of the increase in military spending. They want to do it at the expense of the French. Intelligence for France and its allies includes countries who did not obey their rules-based world order, the countries who develop, not degrade, but develop, who defend their sovereignty, including Iran, defend their sovereignty, including Iran, China, North Korea, were seriously concerned how deliberate this document and even unavoidability of Russia's attack against the EU and NATO until 2030. And France has to be prepared for this. France has to be prepared for this. In deterrence of the potential Russian aggression, the central role belongs to NATO. Cure for some reason. They bet on strengthening the European strategic autonomy with the leading role of France and its military and industrial base. But who do you want to be autonomous from? You just signed debts for to pay off to other countries. Russia has never had any plan. And why do the authors of this review call on to prepare? For this review, call on to prepare. The answer is clearly the doctrinal level. They cement the policy to the comprehensive preparation to the direct armed conflict with our country. The review also pays attention to the nuclear deterrence. I would like to recommend the strategists in Paris not to forget that Russia also has its forces of nuclear deterrence, as well as to read with greater attention the updated nuclear doctrine of our country. Here's my favorite topic.
Политики.
It's about the policy of the United States of America on the international. The policy of the United States of America on the United States of America have taken the decision to withdraw from UNESCO. It's the second decision taken by them in recent history. It's just what we observe now. Actually, the USA has withdrawn from UNESCO already 3 times. According to the US, this organization does not respond to the national interests of the United States. Does not respond to the national interests of the United States of America by promoting the aggressive cultural and social agenda, so promoting conflicts. I think it has been the previous US administrations. They mentioned the pro-Palestinian background of UNESCO that has been unjustifiably focused on sustainable development issues. According to the Charter, the membership in the organizations for the United States of America will end on the 31st of December 2026. Until that date, the Americans remain the members of this structure and have the full responsibilities including the financial responsibilities. Now, some history. 2 years ago, the UNESCO Director General, Madame Azoulay, the return of the United States of America to UNESCO, she just ardently welcomed the decision by the Biden administration. She just literally forced and done it in violation of the rules of procedure and doubts of a number of states. Taking into account the immense debt, it is $600 million for the United States. They were provided rights in the governing bodies of UNESCO. Our country repeatedly mentioned the unacceptability of such step. The Secretary General herself back then such step. The Secretary General herself back then violated the rules of this structure, the operating procedures of the keeper, or not of some mythical traditions, but of the rules her organization is operating, on which the operation is based. But actually she made the entire mechanism to violate the rules. She made it violate the rules. Now she's being ready for the withdrawal of the United States of America. Should better have prepared for the entrance of the United States. And the predictability of the United States policy, the only predictability is its unpredictability. And those notorious budget issues will be cut, the financing will be cut. Now, actually, it's sad news for many Western countries, and after Madame Azoulay, the new Director General will have to deal with those problems after the election this autumn. Actually, those who have withdrawn, I would like to address them. You have entered, you have pursued some policy there. Could you just pay as you withdraw? And now the response by the Austrian Minister, scale of the transit of weapons of the Western countries through the territory of Austria. Why is this strange? Because Austria is considered and declares its neutrality, declares itself as a neutral country. 3,474 cases of transit of foreign weapons. 3,474 cases of transit of foreign weapons. Many have been done by NATO forces. The US equipment has crossed the country 954 times. There have been 5,580 permissions for the aircraft to fly. And there has been land, rail transit, and and 1,764 aircraft flights, military aircraft, and they just violate the neutrality, the constitutional law of 1955. It's just empty words about neutral status, this transit. It's just impossible to make such statements about neutrality. So there is less and less common sense in Western countries. They are not obviously guided by common sense. They're guided by something else. They manipulate against the interests of Austrian people. They manipulate against the interests of Austrian people. Because more than 75% of the population support the maintaining of neutrality in its classical sense. The Austrian authorities can prove its neutrality to someone else in words. Actually, in the past, it has been international mediator in resolving global crisis, but now the concepts of Austria and neutrality are incompatible issues. On the 18th of July, the UN General Assembly adopted the resolution draft on key parameters of UN 80 initiative. It's a number of ideas unveiled by UN Secretary General Guterres in order to increase the efficiency. The lack of financing in the UN budget. It's about cutting the budget spending. This resolution has been supported in essence by all member states. All the objectives of the reforms stated by Mr. Guterres. General Assembly has reaffirmed its central role, its inclusive and transparent nature. The resolution has determined such proposals to be justified, to be guided by the relevant procedures, and to avoid double efforts, and to comply with the mandates in proceed from the fact that the resolution sets a clear framework for an objective analysis and further proposals can be submitted by member states during the consideration of the UN 80 initiative. Now it's about equating the communist ideas by the Czech Republic. Equating them with Nazi propaganda. Are against the human rights and they are to be punished up to 5 years of imprisonment. The initiative has been promoted by the relevant Czech allegedly scientific institutions, including the Institute for the Study of Totalitarian Regime, Memory Institute, Memory Museum, and platform of the so-called European Memory. Before it has been only for the Nazi propaganda, but actually it's such a relevant issue for them. The propaganda of the Communist Party in the Czech Republic and Moravia, such attempts to intimidate those who criticize the current regime. It's that have remained. It's just the current situation. It's not just revanchism, but it's just the ideas of Brussels to equate them and Nazism. It's just a conscious step to erase their own history and the contribution of the soldiers of the first Czechoslovak Army Corps as part of the Red Army, their contribution to the defeat of the Nazis. They just liberators of Czechoslovakia, and it's against those who take care of their memorials. Because the symbols of the Red Army, the army that has defeated Nazism, are under threat. We have repeatedly mentioned the issues are under threat. We have repeatedly mentioned the issues of the preservation of memorials to those measures to protect our memorial heritage. It's a very important date. It's just highly relevant today. It has been 85 years since the formation of the Estonian, Latvian and Lithuanian Soviet Socialist republics. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, those formerly independent republics that have actually lost their independence, they just throw mud at everything connected with their Soviet past and their anti-Russian fervor. Everything connected with the Soviet past, but actually let us have a look how the situation everything connected with the Soviet past, but actually let us have a look how the situation actually looked like when they were in a showcase of socialism, and it was rightfully so, because you can see many infrastructure, energy, transport sites. They just operate even now. It has been a solid social and operate even now. It has been a solid social and qualified personnel from where? From the entire Soviet Union. More than 20 enterprises have been made that provided tens of thousands of jobs for the Republic. It was VEF, Bus Factory, Radio Technica, Zinters, the Riga, largest manufacturer of trams, suburban electric trains and diesel trains. Irrigation plants have been constructed in Estonia, machine building, electric technical plants in Tallinn, the first gas shale plant in Kolayerva in the world. It has been a considerable level of agriculture in comparison with other Soviet Socialist Republic. The Lithuanian Soviet 3.5 times more than the average level in the USSR. In 1965, the volume of production exceeded 15 times the pre-war level. Was also considerable. In 1940, it was 600 scientists in Lithuania and 6,000 students. In 1973, it was more than 10,000 scientists and 43,000 students in Lithuania. The Riga Polytechnical Institute was one of the best in the Soviet Union for the preparation of the engineer personnel. The average per capita income was 547 rubles in 1961, and the average figure exceeded 700 rubles in those republics. Many things were just created from scratch. Those republics. Many things were just created from scratch. Many things have been just donated. It was many things have been just donated. It was a lot of financial input, donations. Through off the shackles of Soviet occupations, they are today at the backseat of Europe. Just have a look at the statistical data of the important and the current statistics in demography is just shocking. The number of population in Latvia during its so-called independence decreased. How do you think it decreased? Decreased by a third, exactly 33%. It used to be 1.8 million people in 1990. It used to be 1.8 million people in 1990. No, now it is 1.8 million people, and 99 in Lithuania, also by a third, 32%. Now it is 2.5 million people. In 1990, it used to be 3.7 million people. In Estonia, decreased by 17%. Now it is 1.3 million people. In 1990, it used to be 1.57 million people. So, I have, of course, I cite that not for the first time I deal with this issue. But let them remember when next time they will be talking about some occupation. They just flew into the abyss by gaining their independence. Now the anniversary of the baptism of Rus. This religion, the proclamation of the state religion, it took place in the year 988. It was done by Saint Prince Vladimir. According to the chronicles, he began to baptize among the princes. The first cases of baptism were in the year 957, the baptism of the Kiev Princess of Olga. In 957, the baptism of the Kiev Princess of Olga adopted Christianity in the year 957. The scholar Dmitry Likachev mentioned this Christianity being in accordance with the interests of the country, and bringing the more developed, more universal religion to Rus. And Saint Vladimir began to spiritually unite all. The Slavic tribes. Of course, you can read about that in detail. Where it has become a sacred place, where many moral values have been set, the values that have determined our life in many aspects in centuries. So the 28th of July, the day of baptism of Rus, on the territory of the new Chersonis's memorial complex, there will be a grand opening of the Museum of Christianity.
Now a very important event, given the upcoming 18th anniversary of the start of the Nuremberg process. The Russian Foreign Ministry prepared an internet project about the activities of the People's Commissariat for Foreign Affairs of the USSR during the Great Patriotic War to establish bring military criminals to justice. This project has copies of documents of Soviet foreign political agency from the archive of foreign politics of Russian agency from the archive of foreign politics of Russian Fed by the German invaders during the Patriotic War is seen in a lot of documents, including telegrams, notes, and notas of the People's Commissar for Foreign Affairs, Molotov, including on the basis of trophy German documents showing outrageous actions of the Nazi invaders on the Soviet territories occupied by them. You have to read, look at it. On 29th marks the national holiday of the Republic of Peru. Is the Day of Independence. Good relations between Russia and Peru is rooted in history. Official ties at the levels of embassies. Russians and Peruvians had similar trials and with dignity characteristic of them withstood all of the challenges. Peru is an important partner for Russia in Latin America. We are set for further developing all the complex of bilateral relations, including trustworthy political dialogue, mutually beneficial trade relations, including trustworthy political dialogue, mutually beneficial trade. This holiday, we would like to wish our Peruvian friends prosperity and all the good. I'm ready to take your questions. It's international affairs with us. Good afternoon, Madam Zakharova. Good afternoon. We have the following question. What can you say about the... I'm sorry. I have a very important announcement. You like it. It's a very interesting topic. You like it. It's a very interesting topic. On June 30th this year, the UNGA adopted a resolution on hate speech. The text confirms that, I quote, hate speech, racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, related forms of intolerance, gender discrimination, acts of extremism, can contribute to driving the outbreak, escalation, and recurrence of conflict, and undermine initiatives to address root causes of conflicts and prevent and resolve conflicts. This very document notes, I quote, any advocacy of national, racial, or religious hatred that constitutes incitement to discrimination, hostility, or violence should be banned. Incitement to discrimination, hostility, or violence should be banned. Registers the exponential spread and proliferation of hate speech, disinformation, and misinformation. The resolution, I quote, urges member states to refrain from creating or disseminating false or misleading information, as well as from conducting or sponsoring domestic or information operations, law. End of quote. So to say, the cherry on the cake. It's the most interesting thing. You won't believe it. The countries of the global majority, including the Russian Federation, of course, voted in favor of this resolution. How can it be otherwise? Everything is written down there. It's common. Otherwise, everything is written down there. It's common sense. But what about the Western states? And some of them refrained. Isn't it something? The stance of the West is not a coincidence. It's a direct consequence of the ideology of the state policy of the regimes in those countries. many countries. Many of the ministry in social networks, we gave numerous Russophobe quotes of the Kiev regime representatives, as well as the representatives of the Western elites. What a thing. The global majority, because of common sense, because of morality, international law, legality, the ideas of good, adopt a resolution, this resolution in the West, to arrange these votes and we launch on the website of the Foreign Ministry a specialized part with the examples of the use of hate speech against our countries and examples of we will provide you with the link in the text of today's briefing. We do this to show how the global majority aspires through words, through the steps, to counter the darkness, to the evil, and and this. I'm sorry, now I am ready to take your question. Thank
решение. Да, с ФРГ поддерживаются двусторонние контакты по дипломатическим каналам. Мы открыты к политическим контактам со странами по их запросу, если в этом есть какое-то практическое зерно. А что мы слышим, вот, например?
sense, but what do we hear from Berlin? Chancellor Merz increase anti-Russian narratives, and it becomes more and more aggressive and hostile. We think that the policy that he chose to escalate relations with Russia, combined with the remilitarization of Germany, is a reason to worry for people in Germany, first of all. Thank you. Thanks to you, is Vestia with us. Good afternoon, Madam Zakharova. We have one question. Recently, the Western countries, and first of all, US, say that they are going to sign about a soon signing of the peace treaty between Azerbaijan and Armenia. Similar statements we hear from Brussels as well. What can you say about it? We told many times that Russia is interested in a stable secure and prosperous South Caucasus. An important condition for this is the long-awaited reconciliation of Baku and Yerevan. And the country did a lot for this, with the personal facilitation of Russia and personally President of our country, Vladimir Putin, in 21 new stage of Armenia-Azerbaijan normalization started. A roadmap was worked out on all strategic direction. It includes a peaceful a peace treaty, the blocking of transport and economic communication in the region, delimitation and demarcation of state borders, development of contexts between the public society. Azerbaijan and Armenia prefer direct bilateral dialogue. We respect this choice. It is up to them to negotiate and to live next to each other, their neighbors. If they found a way for the direct dialogue, it's their decision. We still are prepared to facilitate our partners on all the range of issues. We were ready to give the platform for consultations, for signing a peace treaty and the establishment of state relations between Azerbaijan and Armenia, whether they needed help or not. We supported the negotiations between foreign ministers of the countries in Almaty in May 2024. We welcomed recent bilateral contacts at the highest level in Abu Dhabi on July the 10th. The signals from the Western countries should be interpreted differently. Theoretically, everything is good, but we have to see the essence, and the essence is the following: the information that we receive leave no doubt about the real motives of the West. And their good reasons cover their vested interests. They want to make the Armenia-Azerbaijan normalizations beside the region. These countries try to find consensus decisions on their own or with the support of their closest neighbors. The Westerners, however, want to change the track of the reconciliation of Baku and Yerevan, and we know where this way ends up in. They want to gain scores and to say about yet another success of the Western diplomacy. In reality, it will lead to debalancing of the security system in the region, undermining of the principles of the regional independence. You see, there have never been any prerequisites so that those who earlier did not show themselves as a side who is capable to settle the situation. We see an attempt to interfere into deblocking the transport corridors in the region. The Americans say that they have a unique solution of settlement of the issue, but something beside the trilateral working group, co-presidented by Vice President of Russia, Azerbaijan, and Armenia, in 2023 we were close to the package solution, providing for gradual deblocking of all the roads, development of transport and logistics architecture of South Caucasus for the interests of Azerbaijan and Armenia and other countries. Unfortunately, the work in the group stalled. The transport system in the region and infrastructure in the region are in line with the norms and standards in of the CIA states. As to Armenia, they we have to mention the Eurasian Economic Union as well. And the countries of the collective West do not hide that they are undermining this effort.
Thank you. Thank you. Is China Media Corporation with us? Yes. Hello, Madam Zakharova. Good afternoon. And we have two questions today. First of all, yes, I understand that many things have been already said. What's your assessment of another round of negotiations between Russia and Ukraine? I think all the assessments have been provided by the head of the Russian delegation, Mr. Medinsky. We have nothing to add. If you have some specific questions, please send them to us. But the global assessments have been given, were given yesterday at the press conference. Now, the Fitch International Rating Agency has made a statement that political risks darken the credit prospects of the United States of America, and the Fitch Agency decreased its forecast for the growth of the U.S. industry by 25% for 2025. So, what's your opinion about the trade policy of the United States and it promoting the economic instability? And how could that influence the perspectives of growth domestically and at the international level? I think the focus only confirms the concerns of economists about the risks not only for the global economy but primarily for the United States of America itself. The trade policy by Washington based on hyper protectionist rhetoric and the growing tariff barriers. You see it more and more violating the basic provisions in the freedom of trade. And that's to the detriment of supply chain and causing the growth of spending for the businesses and, of course, for the consumer in the United States of America itself. What could such policy lead further to the fragmentation of global economy? Could weaken the prospects of economic growth? Actually, now the U.S. is preserving crisis manifestations in the world instead of being a predictable player. The U.S. is a source of additional instability now in global trade. I would repeat, it's a consequence not only what you have mentioned, this review, but the assessments of many experts and specialists. Thank you. Thank you. Is RBC with us? Yes, hello, we're here, Ekaterina Postnikova, RBC. My question is about a nuclear-free zone in Southeast Asia. On the sidelines of the forum in Malaysia, it has been stated that Russia is planning to participate in the Bangkok Treaty. What would be the consequences of Russia joining this treaty, and what could be the terms of signing this protocol, and what is required for that? Actually, the quote you have provided, it's not. It does not testify to the full extent about the situation. It's ASEAN countries that participate there, and it's additional addendum to the treaty. It's about all the existing nuclear weapon-free zones. I would remind that the Bangkok Treaty was concluded with ASEAN countries in 1995. In Russia, all the domestic procedures have been finalized to join this protocol. According to the order of the President of the Russian Federation, the Russian Foreign Ministry has been ordered to, requested to sign it with all the amendments and interpreting statements, but the Southeast Asia countries are just not ready to make this process official. We are ready to sign any time, but with our standard additions that are in accordance with the norms of international law and not affecting the interests of states. The mistreatment of the security guarantees provided of Russia is of danger by the countries creating nuclear threats to our country. We observe this treaty as an instrument for nuclear non-proliferation, strengthening regional security. You know that Russia is a signatory of protocols for the treaties on forming other existent nuclear weapon-free zones in Asia, America, and Pacific Ocean. It treats its obligations responsibly and to the full extent. Its obligations on these instruments. Thank you. Is Reuters with us? Yes, hello, Madam Zakharova. Today we have again a question about Iranian nuclear program. It's about the statements by the Iranian Foreign Ministry in an interview with Fox News on Monday, where he said that Iran will never abandon its uranium enrichment program. In this connection, how could this statement affect the negotiations process around Iran's nuclear dossier, nuclear issue, and the ongoing consultations between the representatives of Russia, China, and Iran foreign ministries? How could they affect the threats made by the so-called European Troika representatives? Actually, the negotiations are underway. As soon as they are finalized, we will comment on that. We will inform you. But actually, to make comments in the middle of the negotiations process is premature. We will do that after the negotiations end. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Is just let me have a look. Bold News, are you with us? Yes, hello, Madam Zakharova. Good afternoon. Thank you for this possibility to ask you a question. The Office of Citizenship and Migration Affairs of Latvia reported that 841 citizens of the Russian Federation have expired their temporary residence permits. They will have to leave Latvia by the end of November 2025. And Latvia also explained a 98-year-old Second World War veteran Vasily Maskalonov for tearing up a questionnaire, refusing to criticize the special military operation and the Russian president. What is your reaction towards such actions by Latvian Foreign Ministry? The Latvian authorities continue to methodically implement the policy of infringements of the rights of their compatriots, our compatriots, and expulsions from their country. It's a discriminatory approach towards the specific population group. The norms of migration legislation affect the holders of Russian passports. It's in violation of Latvian obligations. As for the International Convention on the Elimination of all forms of racial discrimination, an obligation to abandon all the forms of xenophobic policy, a serious concern has been voiced by the UN Human Rights Committee to as for another report by Latvia within the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. the conclusions of the committee, they mention other flagrant violations of human rights and the rights of national minorities in Latvia. It's actually deplorable. It's especially deplorable because it affects pensioners, elderly people. They should be definitely treated differently. Other approaches should be used here. They should be supported. I don't know, it's enshrined in the legislation of this country. Against this background, a flagrant manifestation of a neo-Nazi policy of Latvian authorities, the expulsion of a 98-year-old the great patriotic war veteran Vasily Maskalonov, who they just in Riga managed to declare a threat to national security. It's a quote. For his refusal to sign a questionnaire slandering Russia. It's just not disgusting, it's just a deplorable act in order to intimidate the Russian-speaking population in Latvia, because representatives of this group of population, they fall victims to the political terror, this Russophobia pandemics. It's just Latvian governing bodies who have decided just to revenge and to intimidate the Second World War veterans, to revenge for our victory, great victory over Nazism and its Baltic collaborators, Baltic henchmen. We never forget our heroes. That is why the Pskov region authorities have provided the veteran with accommodation and other necessary assistance, forms of assistance. Despite all the difficulties and his age, Vasily Maskalonov steadfastly endured all the hardships and welcomed his return to Russia with the words, "Wonderful, I am in my homeland." So we welcome the return of our compatriots and those who intimidate them. Their fate is known from the history books. It's well known. However they try to destroy them, to burn them, we perfectly know that it's impossible to rewrite history. Thank you. Is Lenta.ru with us? Yes, hello, Madam Zakharova. I would like to ask about Latvia's neighboring country, Poland. Actually, it addressed the Polish citizens on the territory of Russia by recommending them to leave the territory of Russia. And what's the assessment of Russia of such unfriendly actions by Warsaw? Actually, it's quite an interesting story. Let us just study that in detail. It's cutting the decrease of the consular presence of Poland in Russia. And people who have Russian citizenship are considered only as citizens of the Russian Federation. And I would like to remind that the Russian Federation has never imposed any restrictions for Polish citizens, because we're glad that someone visits our country legally, because last year more than 12,000 Polish tourists visited us in 2024, and the Polish statistics show more than 40,000 trips by Russian citizens to Polish. So those citizens visited our country despite the blatant Russophobia in Poland, despite this government campaign they are trying to impose. It's just trying to impose it to the Poles as a national idea. And despite the termination of aviation, of railway communication. It was done by official Warsaw as well. Despite the belligerent rhetoric with regard to the Kaliningrad region, it's the only land border with Poland. Despite that, the Polish citizens visited our country. Maybe the Polish authorities are not glad, not content with what those Polish citizens observed on the territory of our country. They just do not want to show Russia to Polish citizens and to stop these media reports about Russia. Those citizens who have positively assessed their visits to Russia, this friendly country, and lack of some aggressive phobias. In order to stop that, the Polish authorities just invented those new myths. I'm just interested who developed them. Now they just cut the Polish consular presence. So whose initiative was that? Let me remind you, it was the Polish side under a false pretext in favor of their current political situation. They closed the Russian Consulate General in Poznan, in Krakow, and it was our response measure. And we closed the Polish Consulate General in St. Petersburg and Kaliningrad. The Polish side, without thinking much about the consequences, just threw the rake in front of itself, is stepping on it itself, and it's just taking measures against its own citizens. So, if that's all for you, is Helsingin Sanomat with us? It's a Finnish newspaper. Yes, hello. Dear Madam Zakharova, my name is Mary Oper. I'm a new correspondent of this Finnish media outlet. Nice to meet you. It's about the International Helsinki Plus 50 International Conference based on the conclusion of the Helsinki Final Act of 57 participating states of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe have been invited, including Russia. This conference will take place on the 31st of July. Could you please confirm if the Russian side intends to send its delegation to participate in Helsinki Plus 50 conference? If yes, who specifically will participate on behalf of Russia? Thank you. You know, our assessment of the conference to be held in Helsinki from the 31st of July until the 1st of August, the Russian side has provided its assessment in a letter addressed to the OSCE chairmanship and distributed among all the OSCE participants. It's an odious choice of reporters. It's just a negative aspect for us. So discussions, for instance, about the OSCE future. It's just discussed, survival is discussed, and not some bright planning. And it does not include any opportunities for normal interstate communications in order to make the positions closer. So such the outcome of such meeting will not be binding for the participating states. It will not provide any basis for taking any decisions, and so we do not think our country should be represented in this event at the high political level. And as the Russian position has caused reaction within the organization, we do not walk away from our principal assessment of the OSCE situation and the security situation on the continent. Of course, someone would like to hear that. Radical anti-Russian OSCE participants, in order to use that for their own purposes, we will participate in this discussion. We will present our point of view on the basic reasons of the OSCE crisis and convey our proposals to increase the efficiency of the organization, and we will provide you further information on the level of participation. This will work with us. Hello, Madam Zakharova. Hello.
I have two questions today. First one, I would like you to comment on the anti-Russian statement of the Azerbaijani president at the Shusha Forum. In particular, the call on to the Ukraine not to agree to recognition of the Donetsk, Lugansk, Zaporozhye, and Kherson regions as Russian entities. He was also given by a Ukrainian journalist chevrons of Ukrainian divisions. Does this reflect the declaration of Baku to have partnership relations with Russia? Whoever said this, in terms of issues of principle for us, we responded by the administration of the president, but besides many other things, I was surprised and shocked at this forum is the presence of the criminal, according to the Russia's criminal code. He is cited in the list of extremists, and Dmitry Gordon, who presents himself as a Ukrainian journalist. I'll tell you why. You asked about something different and about level of the issue, but I think it is interesting. Take note that the appearance of this extremist, Dmitry Gordon, is always as a black mark for those who harbor hopes for the West. Do you remember a 3-hour interview of Dmitry Gordon in Minsk? It was used by and hyped up by those who wanted to support anti-constitutional, anti-government coup d'etat. It was played out. And now this extremist was there for a reason. I fully agree with those who see the hand of the West in this, of the case stability in our countries. Indeed, it is a powerful and a vivid signal. Question 2. It's about the president of Azerbaijan as well. He wants to bring those involved in the tragedy with the plane to justice. But I would like to say the same. You already asked this question. I already responded to it. I have the same answer for you. So you have no information. No one is brought to justice in Azerbaijan for the killing of Russian soldiers. If I have information, I will share this. Thank you. Is Radio Saga with us? Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Madam Zakharova. Good afternoon, colleagues. We'll be happy to see you in Finland. From Iceland. I would like to ask you about the Russia-Azerbaijan relations. Given the recent developments, the arrest of Russian citizens, the warm welcome of Al-Jilani in Baku, open support to Ukraine, strong statements of President Aliyev and the media under his control against Moscow. What do you think about it? Will you review relations with Azerbaijan? You know, to continue my answer to your colleague, the administration of the president gave commentary on this. Our relations are undergo a very difficult period. We expect the normalization as soon as possible. The first step is the release of the Russian citizens who are still kept by the Azerbaijani forces. The Russian ambassador in Azerbaijan was called to the ministry. The ambassador of Azerbaijan was called to our ministry, and he was given a note demanding release Russian citizens. As far as we're concerned, there's no reasons, there's no ground for such actions of the Azerbaijani law enforcers. I hope that I answered your question. Can I specify one thing? Can this be seen? And why Azerbaijan? Please, I already commented on this. If you would like to understand the grounds for these detentions, ask the Azerbaijani side. I think that they will tell you. Thank you for your answer. Thanks to you. Is news.ru with us? Good afternoon. The news.ru website. We have one question for you today. A number of international experts say that the negotiation in Istanbul was the last chance for Kiev to retain the statehood. What do you think about it? You know, the retaining the statehood depends not on the round of consultations or negotiations, but on the realistic view of what is going on the building a sovereign and independent state for the interests of the people who live in the country, not missionaries who are sent there, not those who receive grants and pursue policy that is not characteristic for the people, but for those who create culture, who do heroic acts for the sake of their motherland. It is their opinion that should be taken into account during the political decision-making. That's how this situation, as you said, the loss of statehood can be settled. That's how they should start. That is a starting point, and this is also the root cause. People should be able to speak their national language, to develop their culture, regardless of difference of approaches. Speak freely. They should implement and realize their right for religion. They shouldn't be afraid to be taken away from their homes, from churches. That's the starting point, and not some magic wand that will help settle these issues. Indeed, 3 rounds of these negotiations that have taken place were marked despite various noises and from the presidential office. They were marked by real actions. The exchange of POWs, of bodies of soldiers, the large-scale issues of statehood must be settled with the account of root causes of what happened in Ukraine and with the understanding that we have to universally revise of the development, the consequences that led to the situation. The idea that someone abroad will help them, will give them more armaments, and they will prevail, it is futile. Thank you. Thanks to you. Is the newsletter of Caucasus with us. Good afternoon, Madam Zakharova. I have one question. What does Russia think about Baku's proposal to rebuild and expand railway between Tabriz, Nakhichevan, Megri, Baku-Debent, that is to become an additional branch of north-south from Russia to Iran? We touched upon this issue. We talked about the blocking of communications in South Caucasus, the routes that you mentioned concerns Iran, Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Russia. As to the international transport corridor north-south, on December 21st, 2024, transport ministers of Russia and Azerbaijan signed an intergovernmental agreement on cooperation to develop transit freight routes on this corridor. Russia is interested in continuing cooperation with Azerbaijan and Iran in this regard. Is Author E with us? Good afternoon, Madam Zakharova. Ruslan Pankratov, Author E. We talked about it a lot, and you paid a lot of attention to the marginalized willingness of the West to cancel the Russian culture, the Russian world. We can remember the cancellation of the participation of Valery Gergiev in the music festival in Italy. But there are other examples. For example, the day before yesterday, on July 22nd, China opened a wonderful, in all senses, an exhibition of the Tretyakov Gallery, Lyarepin. Can you tell about it in greater detail? What's the public response to this? I don't really get why you ask about it. It's not a question, it's a statement. Indeed, on July 22nd, Beijing saw the opening of a large-scale exhibition in the National Museum of China, organized by the State Tretyakov Gallery. It is dedicated to the heritage of Lyarepin, one of the greatest Russian painters of the second half of the 19th century. The exhibition has 90 works, 45 from all of them were provided by the gallery. I don't think I have to talk. I have to tell you about his works. People know them very well. But thanks to the implementation of 2024-2025 intergovernmental project of the exchange years of culture between Russia and China, we see high dynamics of cultural exchanges. Sometimes people are inspired by the scale that they see at the state level. They start to implement their own projects, and this event is a key event within the exchange years and deepens the humanitarian and cultural contacts between our countries. The exhibition will be available until January 11th, 2026. Thank you. Thanks to you. Do you have any more questions? If there are no questions, then thank you. I wish you all the best. Goodbye.
Спасибо.
Спасибо большое.
До свидания.
Спасибо, до свидания.
Goodbye.